back. Hey, we're back.
Baltimore Ravens suddenly backed out of a trade agreement for Maxx Crosby, and the NFL star completely lost it.
It was a whirlwind, man. I never thought I'd be in this position.
Fans thought the deal was done until everything collapsed overnight.
I've got a responsibility to the Ravens, to this community, to our fans, and to Steve Bisciotti to do what we think is best for the club.
After the news went viral on social media, Crosby reportedly responded, and what he did shocked the entire NFL community. The deal that was done. The trade was done. Both sides had agreed. On or around Friday, March 6 to 7, 2026, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Baltimore Ravens reached a verbal agreement. Maxx Crosby would go to Baltimore in exchange for 2 first-round draft picks, the Ravens' 2026 first-rounder, reportedly the 14th pick overall, and their 2027 first-rounder. Both picks gone for one player. That is not a small deal. That is one of the biggest trades in NFL history by compensation alone.
I think when you look at the biggest trades in NFL history, and this would qualify being that I think there were 15 trades made that involved at least 2 first-round draft picks.
And out of all those 15 trades in NFL history that involved at least 2 first-round picks,
none of them ever was voided or nullified due to a physical that did not work out in the opinion of one team.
Not one. Not a single time in the history of that level of deal had something like this happened. So when it happened here, the entire league stopped. The context matters. Baltimore had been struggling to get to the quarterback. They had Lamar Jackson, one of the best players in football, and they needed a pass rusher who could make that team a real Super Bowl threat. Maxx Crosby was that answer. He had put up 69.5 sacks over 7 seasons and had been named to the Pro Bowl 5 times. He was the kind of player that changes a defense. On the Raiders side, the 2025 season had been rough. Crosby had been shut down late in the year amid injury and team tensions. There were questions about the direction of the franchise. Crosby had publicly expressed frustration. The trade felt like the right move for everyone. The Raiders got 2 first-round picks and cleared cap space. Crosby got a fresh start with a real Super Bowl window. Before the deal was made official, Crosby posted an emotional video for Raider Nation. He talked about 7 years in Las Vegas. He talked about his daughter, his growth, and the one playoff run in 2021. He was saying goodbye.
Can't believe that this is a real thing. It's been 7 years being with the nation.
He had already made peace with it.
Ever since day one, I've wanted to create and build a winner with the Raiders.
He said he had given everything he had and that he had no regrets.
It's a new day. I'm going to Baltimore, Flock Nation.
He was going. That was done. He had mentally left Las Vegas, said his goodbyes, and was preparing to start something new. The only step left was the physical, a formality. Every trade in the NFL is contingent on a physical. It is standard procedure. Teams bring a player in, run him through a medical evaluation, and confirm what they already know. Then the deal closes. The new league year was set to open on Wednesday, March 11th at 4 p.m. ET. That was the finish line. Everything was in order. Crosby traveled to Baltimore. He met with doctors, and then everything fell apart. The doctors took scans. They looked at those scans, and what they saw made the Ravens uncomfortable enough to do something no team had ever done at this level of a deal. They walked away.
But the issue is, Maxx Crosby was in Baltimore on Tuesday for a physical. He met with doctors.
Doctors had reviewed everything, and based on what they found,
doctors took scans, doctors looked at scans, and based on what they saw, the Ravens did not feel comfortable.
They did not pass him. On Tuesday evening, March 10th, 2026, one day before the league year opened, the Raiders posted a statement on X. It was short and direct. The Baltimore Ravens have backed out of our trade agreement for Maxx Crosby. We will have no further comment at this time. That was it. No explanation, no back and forth, just a statement and silence. The league erupted. The knee, the doctors, and the decision. The reason Baltimore walked away came down to one thing: Maxx Crosby's left knee. In early January 2026, Crosby had undergone surgery to repair a torn meniscus. The injury had come during the 2025 season and had lingered. The surgery itself involved not just the meniscus, but also related stress to the bone and cartilage, multiple structures in the same joint. When he walked into Baltimore's facility for the physical, the surgery had been done 8 weeks earlier.
Well, this is about a medical issue, Greeny, and this is about how different sides interpret the condition of Maxx Crosby's knee, which underwent surgery 8 weeks ago.
8 weeks out from that surgery, Crosby had only been off crutches for 1 week.
That Maxx Crosby just had the surgery 8 weeks ago. He's been on crutches for 7 weeks. He's been off crutches for the first time a week ago.
That context is important. He had just started walking without assistance the week before he sat down with Baltimore's doctors. That is where he was in his recovery when those MRI scans landed in front of a room full of medical professionals. The Ravens did not just use their own team doctors. They brought in outside opinions as well. One of those outside consultants was Dr. Daniel Cooper, the surgeon for the Dallas Cowboys.
Including the Dallas Cowboys doctor, Dr. Cooper, who performed the surgery on Patrick Mahomes and Malik Nabers, and who teams and players around the league use on a regular basis.
This was not a rushed call. Baltimore went wide with their review. They gathered as many expert opinions as they could before making a decision that would cost them 2 first-round picks. And what those doctors told them made them pause.
It was always going to be an issue like this because it's meniscus, it's bone, it's cartilage, it's a few different things.
Meniscus, bone, cartilage, 3 separate areas of concern inside the same knee. The surgeon who performed the procedure, Dr. Neil Elatrich, was straightforward about the nature of the injury, stating that it's a pretty significant one. He also said Crosby was on schedule. He said his recovery was going the way it was supposed to go. But there was a problem that had nothing to do with Crosby's progress.
So it was a serious surgery, and Dr. Elatrich said he is on schedule. But the problem is the timing of the physical.
The timing. That is the word that explains everything.
The timing of the physical is not in 2 or 3 months when Maxx Crosby would be further ahead.
The physical happened at the worst possible moment in his recovery. 2 or 3 months later, the picture changes. The bone heals more. The cartilage settles. The joint stabilizes. But the physical was not in 2 or 3 months.
It was yesterday when the Ravens have to make a decision.
The NFL calendar forced Baltimore's hand. The league year opened March 11th. The physical had to happen before then. And 8 weeks post-op, the scans showed a knee still deep in the recovery process. Not the knee of a healthy player ready to play week 1 at full speed. The Ravens' concern was not just about the 2026 season. It was about long-term prognosis, potential recurrence, potential degeneration over time. They were buying 5+ years of a player entering his late 20s and early 30s with a complex knee injury. 2 first-round picks is a price you pay for a player who stays dominant for years. If that knee breaks down, if the meniscus, bone, or cartilage gives out again, those picks are gone and the player is not there. Adam Schefter laid out exactly what Baltimore was weighing.
The Ravens felt like we're giving up 2 first-round picks, and this could affect him long-term in terms of how long he can play and how long he can play at the top of his game.
That was the calculation. Not just whether he could play in 2026, whether he could play at the level they were paying for long enough to justify the cost. They decided he could not, or at least they could not be sure enough to bet 2 first-round picks on it. The deal was dead. The fallout hits the league. The moment that Raiders statement went public, the reaction across the NFL was immediate and loud. People inside the league were not just surprised, they were angry. One agent told CBS Sports directly, "How can a team ever trust the Ravens again?" That one line said everything about what the rest of the league was thinking. A deal had been agreed to. It had been in place since Friday. Maxx Crosby had already filmed his goodbye video to Raider Nation. 2 franchises had spent days operating under the assumption that this trade was done. And now, at the last possible moment, hours before the league year opened, Baltimore pulled out. The question that started spreading through front offices was dangerous. If the Ravens could do this, what does a verbal agreement mean in this league? What does shaking hands before the official window mean if one side can walk away the next morning? Critics argued it set a dangerous precedent for pre-free agency gentlemen's agreements, potentially chilling trade talks if teams can walk away post-agreement without penalty. That is a serious structural concern for how the NFL's offseason operates. Teams regularly discuss and agree to deals before the official window opens. That system works because both sides trust it. The Ravens broke that trust, at least in the eyes of many around the league. The on-air reaction from the media was just as sharp. On the Pat McAfee show, Adam Schefter described the scene with the kind of weight you use when something genuinely unprecedented happens.
Well, I think when you look at the biggest trades in NFL history, and this would qualify being that I think there were 15 trades made that involved at least 2 first-round draft picks.
And then the number that put everything in context.
None of them ever was voided or nullified due to a physical that did not work out in the opinion of one team.
None of them, not one trade at this level in the history of the league, had ever been torn apart this way. Stephen A. Smith went even further. He did not hold back on what this looked like from the outside.
Everybody's looking at it saying, what the hell is going on? You knew he was coming off an injury.
That was the core accusation. You knew. The Ravens knew Crosby had a knee issue before they agreed to the trade. The surgery had happened in January. It was not a secret. The league knew. Teams that had inquired about Crosby knew. Dallas knew. Jacksonville knew. Everyone who had been in on discussions about Maxx Crosby knew he had a knee injury he was recovering from.
You knew what a study was. You wanted them on your squad.
The deal was agreed upon, knowing all of that. So what changed between Friday and Tuesday? That was the question hanging over every conversation about this story. The Raiders were blunt about their read on the situation. Cold feet. That was the Raiders' position. Not a legitimate medical concern that nobody knew about, but a team that agreed to something, started doing the math on 2 first-round picks and a massive contract, and found a reason to walk away. The timing of what happened next only made that read more believable, because within hours of killing the Crosby deal, Baltimore moved on to their next target. Not days later, hours. They had Hendrickson signed within 13 hours of backing out of the Crosby deal, a 4-year, $112 million contract worth up to $30 million per year, and they kept both first-round picks. For Raiders fans, and for many people watching around the league, that timeline felt like confirmation. You don't pivot that fast unless you already knew where you were going. You don't have a contract that size ready to sign in 13 hours unless those conversations were already deep. The deal collapsing and Hendrickson signing were not two separate events. They looked like two parts of one plan.
But if you're a Raider fan, so we traded him 4 days ago, all right? And now they decide, and we thought you had the 2 picks.
That is what it felt like from Las Vegas. They gave up their best player. They restructured their offseason around having 2 first-round picks coming in. And then 4 days later, Baltimore said no, and immediately signed someone else with the money they saved and the picks they got back. The Ravens GM speaks. Crosby responds. The morning after the trade collapsed, Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta sat in front of microphones and addressed the public. He did not come in defensive. He came in describing himself as a man who had been hit hard by something he did not want to happen.
As I said at the beginning, we've got a responsibility. I've got a responsibility to the Ravens, to this community, to our fans, and to Steve Bisciotti to do what we think is best for the club.
He acknowledged the public skepticism. He understood why people were looking at the 13-hour Hendrickson signing and raising their eyebrows. He just did not agree with their conclusion.
I mean, I understand it. I understand it. We live in that age of skepticism, and people question, especially people that don't really know me or know the Ravens culture and the Ravens organization.
He said this was not cold feet. He said this was not buyer's remorse. He said this was a franchise living up to its responsibility to do what was right for the organization, even when it was painful. DeCosta called himself gutted and said it was devastating. He said nobody was more upset about the situation than he was. He described Crosby as a player he greatly admired, but he also said that when you sit down with the medical information and the full picture of what you're committing to, 2 first-round picks, years of contract, a player with a serious knee injury, you have to make the call that protects the franchise.
Nobody's more upset about this than me. Gutted by it, actually. And so, a big regret for me.
He said the team would move forward.
We will move on as a football team, and I think there's many opportunities for us to grow as a team, to become a better team, to build a roster, and to be the team that we want to be.
That press conference was measured. It was the statement of a man trying to do damage control while also genuinely believing he had made the right call. Whether the public bought it was a different matter, because on the other end of this, in Las Vegas, Maxx Crosby had landed back home. Reports from inside the Raiders facility said he had shown up at the building at 6 a.m. the morning after flying back from Baltimore, arriving around 1 a.m. He walked in, went to work on his rehab, and said nothing publicly. And then, late that night, at approximately 3:21 a.m. ET on March 12, 2026, Maxx Crosby posted on X, no press conference, no statement through an agent, no lengthy explanation. He simply tweeted, "Everything happens for a reason. Believe nothing you hear and half of what you see." He paired it with a gif of WWE legend The Undertaker rising from a flaming coffin. The post got over 40,000 likes and more than 4 million views within hours. Raider Nation went into full celebration. The internet understood immediately what the gif meant. He was not just saying he was staying, he was saying he was coming back from the dead, and everyone who counted him out was about to watch him prove them wrong. That post did more damage to the Ravens than any press release ever could, because Crosby did not attack DeCosta by name. He He did not call out the Ravens front office. He did not go on television and list every grievance. He posted 4 sentences and a GIF, and he let Baltimore's decision speak for itself. Believe nothing you hear and half of what you see. That line hit specifically. It spoke directly to the medical narrative, to every expert who said his knee was a long-term risk, to everyone who said he might not be the player he used to be. He was not debating the doctor's findings. He was saying, watch what I do next. His agent, CJ Lauboy, had already said as much publicly. Lauboy's statement confirmed that Crosby was on track in his recovery, and if anything is ahead of schedule according to his surgeon, Dr. Neil Elatrick, and that he would undoubtedly return as the dominant game wrecker he has been these past 7 seasons. Crosby's wife shared that same statement on her own Instagram, adding her voice to pushing back on the medical concerns. Meanwhile, on Instagram, Crosby posted a video of himself on the plane flying back from Baltimore. No caption, just the visual. He also scrubbed any Ravens-related content from his profile. Any hints at the move, gone. He was not going to Baltimore. He was a Raider, and the record was being set straight. What it all means going forward. The dust settled. Both teams moved on. But the fallout from this situation left marks that will last. Start with the Raiders. Las Vegas had entered the week assuming Crosby's $35 million salary cap number was coming off their books. They had restructured their offseason and committed nearly $300 million in free agent spending around that assumption. When the trade fell apart, that cap hit came back, and the Raiders suddenly had to figure out how to manage contracts they had already agreed to with the expectation of that relief. One of those deals was for Tyler Linderbaum. Schefter reported that the Raiders had offered Linderbaum so much money that he was going to Las Vegas regardless of the Crosby situation. They also had other free agent commitments in place. All of those contracts still had to be honored. Schefter noted it was possible the Raiders might have to rework some early year details on certain deals, but it was also possible they would not need to. Either way, Las Vegas went from a clean offseason to a complicated one in the span of one Tuesday night. And now they have Crosby and the question of what to do with him.
Now he goes back to the Raiders. The Raiders have said that they've already gotten several calls from teams.
Teams were calling. The phone lines were active almost immediately after the Raiders' statement went public, but the dynamic had shifted. The value of a player who had just failed a physical at a major franchise was not the same as the value of a player about to be traded to the Ravens for 2 first-rounders.
Somebody could step in and offer something now, but the likelihood that somebody's going to make an offer now that compels the Raiders to deal him, like a serious enough offer, I'm a little skeptical of.
The market had cooled. Any team now considering Crosby had to factor in the Baltimore physical. The injury was no longer a background detail. It was the headline. Any new trade would require its own physical, and every team knew what happened last time. The Dallas Cowboys had been one of the teams in on Crosby before the Baltimore deal was agreed to. After the collapse, reports indicated Dallas was not interested in revisiting the conversation. They were already down the road on a deal for Rashawn Gary from the Packers. Whether that was because of the medical report or because the logistics no longer worked, the Cowboys were out. The Buffalo Bills had been mentioned as a possible suitor, but as of March 12th, no new trade had materialized. Crosby remained a Raider. And that, according to the people who know the Raiders best, might not be the worst outcome for either side.
Maxx Crosby absolutely still could be traded later on, but I think there's a scenario under which he does wind up playing for Las Vegas.
And that would be a good thing for the Raiders.
The Raiders had reshaped their roster during the offseason with new coach Pete Carroll. Under new coach Jesse Minter running the defense. They had made moves to build around their quarterback situation. Adding Crosby back into that mix when he was healthy, when he was fully recovered, playing with motivation, gave Las Vegas a different kind of weapon than most teams have.
Maxx Crosby as a Raider, and him showing up 6 a.m. this morning, I do think there's on his 6th year of sobriety.
The report of Crosby being the first person in the building the morning after landing from Baltimore at 1 a.m. said everything about where his head was at. He was not sulking. He was not demanding a trade. He was not going on social media to blast the Ravens front office. He was already at work. An anonymous source told reporters that Crosby was going to be a monster this year as an FU to Baltimore. That is the kind of fuel that changes seasons. A player of Crosby's caliber with something to prove, coming off a knee surgery that every expert said he was on track to recover from, that is a different animal than the version of Crosby who ended 2025 feeling disconnected from the organization. Now look at the Ravens. Baltimore walked away from the deal. took the public hit to their reputation in trade circles, and came out of the week with Hendrickson on a 4-year deal and 2 first-round picks still in their pocket.
Maxx Crosby is one of 3 or 4 people that ruin games. Hendrickson's a great player, led the NFL in sacks 2 years ago.
Hendrickson had produced 74.5 sacks over 6 seasons, ranking 3rd in that span behind only Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler. At 31, he had 1 year with injuries in 2025, but his track record was real. And crucially, he stayed in the AFC North. He would face Joe Burrow and the Bengals twice a season. He knew the division. He was available immediately, fully healthy, and ready to go.
In the end, the Ravens win no matter which way you slice it because Hendrickson can ball.
Stephen A. Smith, who had been one of the loudest voices questioning Baltimore's motives, still landed in the same place when he did the math. The Ravens got what they needed. They addressed their biggest weakness on defense without losing 2 picks that could shape their roster for the next 2 drafts.
So I don't think that we can look at this and say anything bad about what the Ravens did here. They ended up getting what they needed, what they wanted, and you got to give props to them for doing that.
But winning the day in terms of roster moves does not erase the reputation issue. The backlash was described as immediate and intense. Agents and executives around the league were watching. There is no formal NFL recourse for the Raiders in a situation like this. The physical is a legal exit from any deal, but the unofficial economy of trust that makes off-season trades work runs on relationships, and the Ravens spent some of that currency here. Whether it matters long-term depends on what happens next. If Crosby comes back, plays at the level his surgeon and agent say he is capable of, and dominates in 2026, Baltimore's decision is going to look wrong in every highlight package that follows. If his knee breaks down and he struggles to stay on the field, the Ravens front office looks like they made the right call, even when everyone in the league was screaming at them. That is the thing about this situation. The final verdict has not been written yet. It is sitting inside Maxx Crosby's left knee, and whatever that joint does when he gets back on the field. So here's the real question. Was this just a deal that fell apart at the last second, or did something happen behind the scenes that forced the Ravens to walk away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. For more videos like this, click on this next card on your screen.